Hello everyone. So after about 5 years of not posting any videos, I have decided to start posting on YouTube again. I started a Booktok account a few weeks ago and have loved doing videos about books. Really got into reading a lot more again this year after sort of dipping off a little bit towards the end of last year. So for today's video, I'm going to go through all the books that I've read in the first quarter of the year. I didn't read any books in January, so it is just going to be February and March. I'm going to go through all the books I read in the order that I read them, my thoughts, my ratings, and then at the end of every month, I will have a monthly reading wrap up video. So I started off February with a relatively short book just to kickstart back into the habit of reading, and I read Graveyard Shift by M.L. Rio. This book is actually even shorter than it looks because it does have a pretty hefty extract of M.L. Rio's latest works, Hot Wax. But I did quite enjoy this book. I rated it 3 stars. Now, this book is about 5 people who come together after or ahead of a late shift in a cemetery. Now, the cemetery is at a derelict church and it's not in use. So, one evening they stumble upon a freshly dug grave. And obviously, this is a very strange thing and they are very curious as to why it's there. So the story sort of follows them investigating exactly what has been happening. It gets very weird. There is an element of sort of botanical horror in it, which I absolutely love. For me, though, the reason I gave it 3 stars is because I felt like when the book actually started kicking off is when it ended. So I personally would have liked it to have been a bit longer. However, this is a really good introduction into horror, into botanical horror, and I would definitely recommend it. It's just for me, I wanted that little bit more. I then read Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. This is by Grady Hendrix. This is another horror book. The story is set in the 70s in America and it follows a 15-year-old girl who finds herself pregnant. She is taken to a house by her dad for essentially wayward girls. These are pregnant, unwed teenagers, basically. And they are essentially looked after by, there's a doctor there, there's sort of like a bit of a school in the house as well. And they are kept there until they have the baby, and then the babies are given to married couples. So I found this book a little bit slow in the beginning. It took me a while to get into it, but because I knew what was coming, I did want to continue going with the book. So during the stay, the girls are allowed to visit a library which comes to them on sort of wheels, and they go and select a book. Now, the librarian in this gives the female main character a book about witchcraft, and then the story just spirals from there. Really weird things happen. The story does at times get quite eerie, quite scary, and spooky. There are also quite gross scenes throughout the book as well, which are quite difficult to read. But I really did enjoy the story. I rated this 4 stars. I definitely want to read more Grady Hendrix books as well. Recommend this if you are someone that is wanting to get into more horror books or sort of witchy books. It's definitely a great place to start. I then read Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. This is ex-boyfriend's dad book. It's the first one I've sort of read with that kind of vibe to it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was quite good. I rated it 3 stars. It wasn't the best book I've ever read. It was just a nice sort of fluffy romance. I definitely would say that this is a good place to start if you are wanting to get into Penelope Douglas's books, because some of her books are quite taboo or quite dark. So this is a great way to start off with her work. I then read Older by Jennifer Hartman. This was Best Friend's Dad. So I read, for some reason, 2 dad books in a row. I rate this book 4 stars. I quite enjoyed this a lot more than I did with the Birthday Girl book. I find with Jennifer Hartman's books, I've read 2 of her books so far, that there's a lot more emotion. It's not just a fluffy romance. There are sort of more of a roller coaster sort of ride to get there, but I quite enjoyed it. I then read Magnolia Parks. This is by Jessa Hastings. This is the first book in the Magnolia Parks universe. I really enjoyed this book. I rated it 4.5 stars. This destroyed me though. It's so sad and but it's so bingeable. This is like the equivalent of trash sort of reality TV, but in a book. It's about a group of rich, sort of older teens from London, and about them sort of getting up to stuff that they shouldn't do, their relationships, their friendships. And yeah, it's this one in particular I found very, very sad. But I've heard so many good things about the series. I do think it's one of those things where you will either love it or it will just not be for you, but it is definitely for me. So I would definitely recommend it. I then listened to the audiobook of Rose in Chains. This is by Julie Soto. I loved this so much. This is definitely not a romantasy. I would definitely say it's more of a fantasy. So this book follows a princess called Bryony, and her castle is sort of taken over after there's a bit of a war. And she is captured along with other women. They are then auctioned off. Now, there are a lot of politics in this book, which I found made it a lot more enjoyable. The magic system in it is really interesting as well because there's heart magic and there's mind magic, and that sort of seems to what separates both sides. So Bryony is bought by her enemy family, and you get a lot of flashbacks as to sort of the relationship she had with the family prior to her being bought. You get a lot more sort of backstory to the politics and to the world in general, which just helps the story progress a little bit more and helps you understand as well the characters, why they do what they do, the relationships they have with each other. This is part of a trilogy and it's set up so well for the first book. Now, the second book doesn't come out until January, which I hate that. I hate it when you read a really good book and you have to wait an awful long time. But I do think it's going to be really worth it. If you're someone that doesn't want to wait, I would wait until closer to the time to read Rose in Chains. I definitely will read it again before book 2 comes out, and I cannot wait. So definitely recommend. I rated this book 5 stars. I then read Bratfer Prince. This is the second book in the Bratfer series. This series is pretty wild. It is just crazy. It's a mafia romance. It's sort of interconnected standalone. So each book follows a different couple, but there is an overall plot sort of going throughout the books. The books also do the timeline sort of overlap. So the end of book 1 and the start of book 2, there is a bit of a crossover. So it is really important that you read them in order because it just helps you understand a little bit more as to like how the characters got there. So book number 2 follows Alexander, who is Ilyana from book number 1's brother. Now, Alexander is part of the sort of Russian mafia in America. And then you have Drea, who is part of the sort of Mexican cartel. I can't remember what her sort of group is called, but I really enjoyed this. I think that the Volkov family is so funny, so funny. And the things that happen in the book are so unrealistic, but you just can't put it down. It is just hilarious. Um, the characters as well, the sort of romance in like the books that I've read so far, again, is also pretty wild. But it's really funny and it's so bingeable and so easy to read. So this is one of those series that I think I'll just pick up every once in a while because I feel like it's really easy to kind of get back into that world because you sort of you don't pick up where you left off. You almost get a refresh of kind of what's happened before. So definitely recommend. I rated Bratford Prince 4 stars, and yeah, I can't wait to continue with the series. I then absolutely binged my way through the Edge of Darkness trilogy. So book 1 is Insatiable. You've then got book 2 Voracious and book 3 Restitution. Now, this trilogy is very dark. It is definitely one of the darkest sort of books that I have personally read. The trilogy starts with Insatiable, where you meet Cade and Stacy. Now, they are not together at the start of this book, and you will find out why. Throughout this book, you get flashbacks into them sort of meeting for the first time, how their relationship starts and develops, and then obviously ultimately why they end up not together anymore. Um, Not only are the books really dark, but they are really quite sad as well. I cried so much throughout all 3 books, but I would definitely recommend them, especially if you do like darker books, darker romance books. There are a lot of gross scenes in there because it is a bit more of a sort of mafia style book. It's one of those books as well where things happen in it that are really just unrealistic. Like it describes that an army in the front of the house of like hundreds of men and that type of vibe. But Overall, I think this trilogy is really good, and I can see why it is really well liked. So throughout the books as well, you also meet Cade's mum and dad. Now, Cade's mum is Arya, who is married to Ewan. Ewan is not Cade's dad. Cade's dad is Tobias, who is in a mental institution in America. So Cade's mum and dad are not together in the Edge of Darkness trilogy. Throughout the Edge of Darkness trilogy, you hear a lot about Tobias and Arya's relationship because obviously they are Cade and his sister, Luciella's parents, because he's a twin. Um, and you hear a lot of the messed up things that Tobias has done and ultimately why he's ended up in this mental institution in America. So Cade and his family are in England, but they do go over to visit Tobias in America. So you do sort of see them together, and then you do hear sort of why he's there and what's happened between him and Arya. So the whole trilogy itself, I'd say, is 5 stars. Each individual book themselves, I would also say, is 5 stars. Definitely recommend them. But after I read the Edge of Darkness trilogy, I read Psychotic Obsession. So this book technically takes place before the Edge of Darkness trilogy. However, as I mentioned, you meet Tobias and Arya in the Edge of Darkness trilogy. Psychotic Obsession is the story of them coming together, them meeting, and showing you all of the messed up things that Tobias has done. It is really important that you read Edge of Darkness first. It's not that it has spoilers in it, but I think it's really important that you know who Tobias is after all of these things happen, because Psychotic Obsession is messed up. It's crazy. The things that Tobias does is insane, and it was quite hard to read at times, and I had to kind of keep remembering the person that he becomes in the Edge of Darkness trilogy for him to sort of be redeemable in a sense. This book as well has a brutal ending. It had me sobbing. And if you are someone like me who kind of needs closure, then what you will need to do is there is another duology called the Web of Silence Duet, which is also by Lee Rivers. If you read the epilogue to in, I think it's Little Liar, which is the second book, I'll put it here. That will give you closure on Arya and Tobias's relationship, and that takes place after the Edge of Darkness trilogy. So there is a little bit of hopping, but trust me, it is so worth it. I haven't read the Web of Silence duet. I don't know if I'm going to, but I had to read the epilogue to sort of get closure on Arya and Tobias. I ended up rating Psychotic Obsession 4 stars. I really did enjoy it. Not as much as I enjoyed the Edge of Darkness trilogy, but I would still recommend reading it. I then listened to the audiobook of My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. I really enjoyed this. This is a thriller book, and it kind of jumped straight into it. You follow Eden Fox, and she's going out for a run. She's recently moved into a town, and she's talking about this art gallery event that she's got going on because she's an artist. She's really excited. She's talking about what she wants to wear, how supportive her husband is. And then when she arrives back home, her key doesn't work in the door. So she knocks on the door thinking maybe her husband's changed the lock, maybe something's going on. And a woman opens the door who looks exactly like her. And she is claiming to be Eden Fox. Then the person who she is talking about, her husband, comes to the door as well and is like, "Who are you?" So the book gets really crazy, but it's so good. You meet so many characters. You get different points of view of each character. So you kind of, the chapters sort of jump between the characters. The plot twists in this book were really quite surprising. I really enjoyed it. When you read the book as well, I felt like immediately I was like, well, I know what's going on because of the, like, literally the second chapter. But I was completely wrong. So I rated this 4 stars, would definitely recommend it. I really enjoyed the audiobook, but I think I would have enjoyed it just as much if I would have read the physical book as well. I then read Grave Matter by Karina Halley. This book, this is probably the best book I've ever read, my favorite book of all time, and that is saying something. I originally said that this book is 5 stars, but I definitely need to say it's a 6 star book. So I went into this book thinking it was like a dark academia type vibe. I would definitely not describe it as that. I would definitely say it's a botanical horror book with a subplot of romance to it. I went into this pretty blind. And I'm quite glad I did, because it was not what I expected to be at all. But I also worry that that's why it seems to be a book that no one really talks about. The book follows a mycology student called Sydney, and she arrives on an island where she is going to be with other students, and they're going to get the opportunity to sort of work, take part in research into how you can use sort of fungus in a medical sense. So, this island have said that they've discovered this fungus, which they think has properties which are going to help. And Sydney, in particular, she's really interested in sort of researching into things like Alzheimer's. When Sydney arrives on the island, very quickly, something isn't right and weird things start happening. So the book really jumps straight into it, but nothing is really explained. The only way I can describe this book is it's almost like you're following Sydney's descent into just absolute madness. You have no idea whether the things that she is saying or seeing are really happening. This book has ghosts in it, it has grotesque creatures, it has a bit of botanical horror, it has almost a little bit of body horror as well. And I absolutely loved it so much. It was so spooky and scary and eerie. And the writing just created the most vivid imagery that you could imagine. That it was just, oh, it was so spooky, and I loved it so much. Like I said, there is a subplot of romance in. I don't really want to talk too much about the romance, because I feel like that's where you need to go in the most blind. So as you're coming towards the end of the book, I was like, I think I've got this plot twist, I think I know what's going on. And I was wrong. And the way the book comes together and everything is explained is one of the reasons I love the book so much. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. I definitely want to read more of her sort of horror books, because she seems to have quite a lot. I then read The Perfect Son by Frida McFadden. This I didn't really enjoy, to be honest. So I normally pick up Frida's books every once in a while as just a quick, easy read. Even the fairly chunkier ones, I find that I fly through quite quickly. I rated this 2 stars. So this book is about a mum called Erica, and her son is accused of taking and harming a girl in his school. I figured out the plot twist in this in the first couple of chapters. There was something that just gave it away, and it's not very often that I find her plot twists are very predictable, but this one was the most predictable by far. So yeah, I didn't really enjoy it. I wouldn't really recommend it. I think that she's got much better books with much more unpredictable plot twists. So yeah, that's the reason I gave it 2 stars. I then finished off March with Please Don't Go by E. Salvador. Oh, I loved this book so much. So much. This is actually my sister's. She recommended it to me because she said she really enjoyed it. And we typically have quite similar taste in books, but I was not expecting to like it as much as I do. This is a contemporary sort of sports ish romance, which isn't normally my thing, but I actually ended up giving this book 6 stars. This is my favorite ever contemporary romance I have read. Now, the reason it is because I found that the writing wasn't cringy whatsoever. I felt like the characters were very likable. I felt like the plot itself was actually really quite good, and the romance itself wasn't, again, super cringy. The story starts with Josephine, who is the female main character, and Daniel, who's the male main character, meeting in a not very nice way. I cried quite a lot in the first couple of chapters of this book alone, and then throughout this book. I definitely would check the triggers in this book, because there is a lot of things about like mental health, which I know for some people might find quite difficult. However, I think that what was quite nice about the sort of romance between them is that the healing wasn't just done together, but it was also done apart. However, that made the book quite an emotional roller coaster. So this is the first book in a series, and it's set up really well for book 2. I sort of have an idea as to who I think the characters are going to be in the second book, but it doesn't necessarily give it away straight away. So yeah, I am really looking forward to continuing the series. I thought the writing was really good. The characters really good. Even the dialogue between them wasn't too much. It wasn't repetitive, and I would highly recommend this. I really hope you enjoyed my reading wrap up for February and March. I'm really looking forward to doing my April one, because I've read quite a few good books already so far this month, and I look forward to doing more book videos. So if there's any book recommendations you have, or any book videos you would like to see, then please do let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.